process that has been underway over the past number of months is nothing more than a stage-managed, orchestrated charade designed to give the illusion that ye were tossing and turning and debating issues and wrestling concessions from IAG, when in actual fact the outcome you'd already decided upon long ago. And you know what, from a Fine Gael point of view, that's not really surprising. I mean, it was, after all, Michael Noonan who handpicked Willie Walsh to be the chair of the NTMA Advisory Board, the board which has the responsibility for advising New Era on the government's divestment of state assets. So this day is not surprising. It's a vindication of the policies of neoliberalism and privatisation pushed through and adhered to by Fine Gael. It's an entirely different matter when we look at the record of the Labour Party and what it stood before the electorate as pretending to be. And I think it's in that context that there are people now all over the country today who are utterly shocked at what is going on here. And I'm not in any way exaggerating. I see myself first and foremost as an Aer Lingus worker. I think today of the people who have built this company, and they have, who've got out of bed in the morning, who've got their children out of bed at the morning to go in for an early shift and keep this airline afloat. I'm thinking of the pensioners who see their retirement income decimated, and that's what's happened here in rushed legislation that this government has been responsible for. And you go on the airwaves over the last number of months and you say, and Labour deputies say, do you know what, we won't allow this. If Aer Lingus is sold, we'll make sure that the pensioners are protected, and we'll get the money in to shore up the living standards of deferred pensioners and existing pensioners. In some instances, people who've worked 40 years and contributed to a pension scheme. And do you know what you've done and come up with? Absolutely nothing. And, you know, the pride felt by Aer Lingus workers is not just felt by the workers themselves. It's actually an iconic image which is held very dear by the travelling public and generations of Irish people. Because there's not too many companies out there now that can claim to have a history of almost 80 years' employment. Secure, permanent, pensionable, tens of thousands of people had good jobs there in Dublin, Cork and Shannon. In the 1980s, Aer Lingus workers on their own paid more taxes than all the farmers in the country at a time when many concessions were being handed across Europe. It was always a net contributor to the coffers of the Exchequer. It developed connectivity, regional development and so on. And it was an iconic reference to Ireland as an independent nation, and people value it as that. And we've been subjected to a yarn by the government that this step and this betrayal and sellout that's been put before us today is necessary in order to secure the airline's future. Now, I have to say it's a narrative that makes me sick and bears no relationship to reality whatsoever. Because if that was true, that Aer Lingus needed somebody to take it over or to partner with, well then surely to God the board and the management that she expressed such confidence in would have been going out there actively seeking such a partner. But the reality is the only reason why this is on the table is that IAG, for the interests of its own members, its own owners, shareholders who are resident in Britain, Europe and Qatar and the Middle East, it's their interests and their revenue that is motivating this deal. Now, the idea that this is in the best interests of this country, that we're a small country, we can't survive in the global aviation industry, is an absolute joke. We've been hearing that in Aer Lingus for years. We heard it after 9/11, we heard it after all the times when all the national carriers went to the wall many years ago, and we're hearing it again today. Look at Finnair, look at Malov and all the rest. Well, we're not them. We're not them. And, you know, talk about, well, we can be part of a global alliance, the One World Alliance, Fine Gael TDs were saying today. Aer Lingus has been part of those alliances. Aer Lingus has a proud tradition of linking up with other airlines. But we are different than other countries as well, because we're the only island nation on the periphery of Europe that doesn't have a mainland link with mainland Europe. We are unique in that sense, and we've a lot to offer. And a lot of the benefits outlined by yourself, Minister, and the Taoiseach earlier about the growing airline, about tourism and all the rest, a lot of them are already there. I mean, we had the Wild Atlantic Way was been responsible for this earlier. It's ludicrous. Who owns Aer Lingus is irrelevant from that point of view. The point is, who is going to benefit from all of those enormous positive contributions that Aer Lingus makes? As I said earlier, this is a company that has been consistently profitable. It's a company that is already growing, with 9 long-haul aircraft already booked, and it's a company with $1 billion in cash reserves already. So the drive of this is not the future of the airline or the benefits of the Irish people. It's what's in the commercial interests of IAG. And I'd put it to you that the guarantees that you talk about are a little bit on the incredibly pathetic side. I'd like you to address this B share and the so-called veto that you have, because it's laughable. It's unprecedented in terms of world economics and global capitalism. And I'd like the Minister to address the fact, well, given the fact that you're going to be a captive subsidiary in IAG, well, how could you have a situation that, for example, Aer Lingus wouldn't be leasing that to IAG, or that IAG would use it for its own purposes? But what I'm particularly concerned about is the workers and the ground staff there, because allusions to growing staff are just unsubstantiated sort of wish lists for future development. Some of the growth in cabin crew and pilots was there anyway, but you are effectively silent on the decimation that will take place in terms of ground crew. And I would like you to address the fact that previous so-called legal guarantees and letters of comfort were given to people, assurances that couldn't be broken, and you know what? They were broken. And the Supreme Court of this land adjudicated that they were broken, and the CEO of Aer Lingus at the time, who was Mr. Willie Walsh, ignored those directives from the Supreme Court. So where have you got these magic guarantees now that nobody else in the history of humanity has ever got? I'm delighted that Minister Howlin has joined us, because the appalling lack of Labour deputies here has been quite striking, and I can only ascertain that the reason why this has been rammed through is that you want to protect yourselves from the workers and the communities involved.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that's not going to happen.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Thank you very much. Next